I don't want to let the cat out of the bag in regards to my bravado here on this channel on Wall Street Breakdown, but I'll give you a little bit of insight before we get into this story. I'm a long-time professional wrestling fan, and a lot of this gimmick is probably drummed up from my years of watching what is ostensibly the best mic men in the business stand in front of live crowds and give you some of the best promos that you can imagine. I might not be the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, but I'd like to think I'm somewhat of the most electrifying man in Wall Street Breakdown history. That's got to be at least good enough, right? I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. We have professional wrestling news. Now, I don't know if you know, but I know that the WWE, the prominent leader in sports entertainment, is a publicly traded company. That's right. You can actually buy shares and own a part of your favorite wrestling federation. Well, they don't like to use the word wrestling. They're sports entertainment, and they don't like to use that F word anymore because the Panda Bear took it away about 15 or so years ago. Yesterday, CEO of WWE, Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, sold off in a block share 3.34 million shares. That's right. That's a pretty big sell-off. You got to think, well, Vince is in his 70s. What's Vince planning on doing with what is a roughly $100 million transaction? Is he going to go out and start a bodybuilding federation again? Maybe start selling me some Ico Pro? Actually, he actually is going to be revisiting what sounds like an old idea. Before we get into that, let me tell you that as of today, we're close to the end of trading. The WWE's trading at $29.39. It's down $7 or 7.78%. It's down a couple of dollars and some change. But you got to imagine it's going to be down even more going forward because this news is going to cause Vince, who loves to get distracted by other ventures, to get distracted once again. And in his 70s nonetheless. What is this venture, you're asking? The venture is what we've been hearing all week. Potentially the WWE that runs its own network now. Now, it doesn't need network help for this, even though it might go out and try to find some. It does have its own network, so it's got its ability to bring its own programming through its own medium to the masses that spend $9.99 a month on the WWE network. Vince McMahon, now in the disclosure, he just said he's going to fund some other sports venture, but we've been hearing all week, us wrestling fans, that the potential for the XFL to be coming back is a potential. Well, now it sounds like it's happening, because why else would you liquidate 3.34 million shares at $100 million roughly, unless you were thinking about bringing your kooky football league over to the WWE network? I don't know how he plans on making this any more of a reality now than it was in 2001 when it dragged the WWE down, the prosperity of the WWE and the NBC affiliation that got involved with it. It didn't do well for anybody. Now, I'm not sure if Vince maybe hasn't rethought this plan somehow, or if he isn't maybe just starting to lose it entirely to revisit an idea like this. Maybe in the thought process of rethinking this, maybe he's going to try to get some sort of a partnership going, whether with the NFL or the CFL, to try to actually be a feeder league as opposed to direct competition like he was last time. I think that was probably the biggest problem last time, was even though they were running in the spring and not running head-to-head with the NFL, they didn't have the talent to compete. And because they didn't have what is the NFL's, extra roster space, those guys still get to stay there. Those guys want to play in the NFL. So the roster that gets to play on the actual field, there's still some overflow that they get to hold on their practice roster. So even the best talent in the world that's not on the field in the NFL wasn't on the field in the XFL. They were getting some second-rate players. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. But this time around, maybe if they can work out some sort of an agreement with the NFL or CFL, they might actually make a go of it. They do have their own network, like I was saying. The WWE network, which a lot of people thought wasn't going to be a success, has actually turned out to be quite a coup for the guys over at the WWE. They were one of the first major companies, if not the first, to get into their own proprietary streaming service, and it's working quite well. But I mean, come on. The stigma of the XFL in and of itself is terrible. I mean, it stinks to high heaven. I think everyone knows that. ESPN's 30 for 30 did a documentary on it earlier this year, and from reports inside the WWE, apparently that got Vince thinking that maybe he could go out and do this again. Maybe he can make a go of it in the football realm. Vince has tried this. They have a movie studio. The WWE has a movie studio. I know you've never seen the Marine 3 with The Miz. It's because it all goes direct to video. They try to do this. What they do is the wrestlers go out and they bring in all this money, and then all this money gets parsed out into these crazy ideas that Vince has, like the World Bodybuilding Federation, Ico Pro, the XFL, a movie studio. There's a music department that makes, it's god-awful. Let's not get into any of that. It's god-awful. This is a terrible idea. I can understand why investors are dragging the price of the WWE stock down, but just as a fan of the pomp and circumstance that comes along with professional wrestling, I, for one, and I'm sure every wrestling fan out there, if not just for a good solid laugh, are very interested to see what Vince is going to do with $100 million to fund a sports venture. Will he get into MMA? It's potential, right? We've heard that Shane McMahon, when he originally left the WWE, was a big proponent of being invested in a mixed martial arts organization. I think MMA has really run its course. I mean, as far as the top end is, there's not a whole lot of top end money anymore. Fighters don't fight as consistently as people would like. There's just too many fighters, too many cards. Any of the regular people out there that follow MMA, there's too many things for you to keep track of. And in a world where concussions are such a big deal, concussions in wrestling, concussions in football and hockey, where we've seen CTE numbers be exorbitantly high when studied for anybody who played these sports for any amount of time, for Vince to go ahead and then get into football or get into MMA, I don't know. I mean, honestly, this just seems like a joke, right? It seems like a joke. I've been hearing about it all week on some of the wrestling channels I look at on YouTube, and I can't believe this is going to happen. And then to take a look at this when I'm analyzing some stock stuff and to see Vince is doing this, this isn't really giant market news. I don't advise anybody to be invested in the WWE. Just because I'm a wrestling fan myself. I've never been invested in this and would never be invested in this. This is something that's just completely, I like just in my own life. It has nothing, and it's more for a lark than it is for anything else, or it more is just the looking back through rose-colored glasses through the things I grew up with, as opposed to what things are today and the actual marketability of stuff like this. While the WWE does still make good money, it's not good to take your CEO's attention away and start to try to divest into a football league. What are you going to compete with the NFL again? What a silly thing. But we're going to see something happen because there's obviously something on the precipice. 3.34 million shares sold by Vince for around $100 million. Football league, MMA. He might as well be getting into a hopscotch. This all sounds pretty flighty to me, but I'd love to see how this is going to play out. I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button, notification bell, thumbs up for Vince McMahon just being off his rocker. This is awesome. Comments, leave us some comments. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm sure you got a lot of thoughts about this. Feel free to let me know how you thought Clash of the Champions was last weekend or any of that other kind of stuff. I love wrestling too. I don't bring it to this channel very often, but this really seemed to intersect with the stock market and something that I like on my free time. I just want to see how this ends up playing out. Leave us some comments. Have yourself an outstanding rest of your Friday.